Hello and welcome to part 4 of our ongoing expose on the Treasury pillage. Before we delve deeper into the rot, let's refresh your memory on what we have so far.
On day 1, we revealed the broad strokes of the internal Treasury report, which had made 54 damning findings against the manner in which the Integrated Financial Management System project had been handled. 49 of the 54 findings had been dubbed catastrophic by the auditors. In part 2, exposed how KPMG made a killing in its first property contract. Part 3, we joined the dots linking BITS, Mohammed Kasim and Lungisa Fozile and the seeming conflicts of interest.
Today we get you part 2 of our investigation into KPMG contracts. In part 1, we dealt with KPMG Property 1 contract where the company made 76 million rand without any accountability. Today we put the other 2 deals under the scanner, the Property Part 2 contract and the Strategic Systems Planning contract. We tell you how KPMG again backed 46.3 million rand without any deliverables of quality assurance, and how KPMG was paid 5 million rand for just 16 hours of work.
Now let's go across to my colleague Abigail Visahi for more on these details. Abigail?
Let's take a look at our first graphic this evening. It's marked as catastrophic in that sheet. KPMG bags 46.3 million rand without any timesheets presented. Management shocker did not deem necessary to receive timesheets as deliverables had cost attached to them, says the management. But the auditor's indictment, there should not be a justification, noting that 46 million rand was spent in that regard. Taking a further look, KPMG bags 2.2 million without timesheets. Management shocker, timesheets are not required, says the management. The auditor's indictment do not agree with the management's view in regard to that 2.2 million rand that was paid without timesheets. It's back to studio for now.
Well, thank you, Abigail, for taking us through those details. It's now to have the conversation back here in studio. Let me take this opportunity to introduce to you our panel for today. We have Mr. Mzwanele Manye from PPF. We also have Reverend Selo Dere, Chairperson of the Free State Council of Churches. We also have Volcher Ikwane, National Black Business Caucus, and Yamkele Spengane from the Black Consciousness Political Activist. And we also have Mr. Musire Tsiane from the South African Liberty Foundation. Gentlemen, thank you and welcome to N7 Prime.
Hi, but tonight I'm representing Decolonization Foundation.
Mr. Manye, you see, this is what happens when you wear so many hats and we cannot keep up. But that is noted, Decolonization Foundation, that's what you're representing today. So for the past week, a lot of revelations into gross financial irregularities in the office that is set up to run the IFMS. What does it say about these departments that are known to have this record and this reputation of being clean, and yet we're seeing these revelations coming through? Where do we start with? We will start with...
We can bring the Reverend,
okay, the Reverend. Perhaps
because he hasn't
tab.
visited us before.
Let me come after the table.
Oh, you want to come after the table?
Look, I think this sets a very bad taste in South Africans' mouth, because of a situation here where you have a department that is supposed, who's got its mandate first and foremost from the Constitution of this country. Section 216 of the Constitution puts the full responsibility on National Treasury to manage the finances of the country. Now, when you have a department that has got such a serious mandate that is now found to be floundering on such basics in terms of governance, that erodes the confidence. In fact, this is very dangerous even for the rating agencies, from a rating agency's point of view. We cannot afford to have this. I can understand why Minister Kigaba is in such an invidious situation, because he has to project an image of everything is above board. But indeed, with the internal audit report that we've seen, it's very clear that there's a lot of rot in there, and I'm almost sure that this is just a tip of the iceberg. And I'm saying this because I see the attitude of white monopoly capital in terms of them trying to protect what's happening in there, because they're protecting their cash cow. So I think a probe that the public protector must do of the National Treasury sub and the FIC, as it were, that probe must happen as a matter of urgency, because it's very clear that even the policies that National Treasury has been driving, like the PPFA, which continue to favor white monopoly capital, it just shows that here you have an institution that has been captured to the core, that they even make government policies that continue to favor white monopoly capital. So indeed, it's a very, very, very sad situation.
Amkela, you haven't really been with us the past 4 days as we discussed this issue. What are your thoughts on what has transpired? First of all, the existence of this audit from Treasury.
The fact that
can't even say the word.
The fact that even the publication or the publicity of the report itself is not widespread, as you would have other so-called forms of state capture being publicized, is a travesty on its own. Because here we have the National Treasury, just to reiterate Mr. Manyi, who said that this is the national purse. The Constitution gives the Treasury to be the custodian of all of the fiscus itself. That means that from the Treasury, every other expenditure that the government has in all of its department, national, provincial, and otherwise, the custodianship lies within the Treasury itself. The policies that drive our monetary policy, our fiscal policy, lie within the Treasury itself. No, when there's corruption and the Treasury is implicated in basic violations of the Public Finance Management Act, we have a serious problem that needs to be looked into, to say, as a country, really, when we are defining what we term state capture, what is the depth of it and what is the actual problem? And we actually need to now revisit, because state capture is a term that has been given a very bold and wide headline audience. And now we need to revisit and say what really is state capture. And if Treasury is found wanting to be benefiting certain companies that are aligned to certain individuals, what does it mean for us as a country when we are fighting for what we call a democracy, when we are fighting for what we call actual freedom of the people to be able to actually access such information? Because this information is public information. People want to know what happens to their fiscus, want to know how their taxes are deployed, and expenditure of people raking in millions through manipulation and damned manipulation of the Public Finance Management Act becomes a serious travesty to democracy itself. It's a threat to democracy itself.
And that was going to be my next question, actually. Why should people care? Why should South Africans care what happens in a National Treasury Department, particularly the IFMS? Why should that be important to them? I think you've explained that very well. But I just want to come to you, Reverend. I hope you are ready for us now. There's been a lot of exposés and revelations that have come through even mainstream media in the past couple of weeks. This particular one hasn't received that kind of attention. Why do you think this is so?
Well, it is very clear. Firstly, may I thank you for inviting me here, and I am from Free State. There's a Free State Council of Churches there, but today I'm also representing the Bethakowa Charlotte Makreke Foundation, which have just been founded. Firstly, I will say there has not been that vast exposure and revelation about this whole scandal that is rocking the department, because it is very clear that we have a media which is captured. We've got some press media which is under control of the opposition, anti-ANC government, anti-democracy, and despising the black-led government, even undermining it, because now they have not been that open publishing as we know them. People like the Right to Know group, where are they? I have never even heard them commenting anyhow. Where are this Helen Suzman, this righteous DA, so-called opposition, this Holy Than Thou? Where are they? Because this is a country. It's the people, you know, a concern about the status the affairs, about the security of the Treasury. And this exposes very clearly how there have been this freedom of corruption, which today, this is not getting the public media, as we know, because it is now exposing the actual state captures. It is just the results. Because this whole noise about Zuma's administration, President Zuma's administration being captured, it has been, the forerunning of this has been to avoid and to cover up what is still coming. And I believe there is more still to come, right, which will expose this actual state captures.
Well, we'll involve two of our guests, Volche Kwekane and Musiri Tsiane, in just a moment. Timesheets were not the only requirement overlooked for the payments made to KPMG. Let's go across to Abigail Fisaki for more.
Well, thank you very much. Let's take a further look now at KPMG paying 5 million rand for 16 hours, also marked as catastrophic. Inception report approved on the 6th of February 2015. Also, 5.1 million rand was invoiced. That took place on the 10th of February. Invoice for 16 hours of available time to perform work. The weekend in this regard was excluded. Management's shocker, finalization delayed due to time taken to understand the nature of the work, says management. But the auditor's indictment, no need to commence work before understanding what actually needs to be done in that regard. It's back to the main studio for now.
Well, thank you, Abigail, for taking us through those details as we continue to ventilate these issues back here in studio. I would like Volcher to respond to this. An Inception report, from my understanding, of course, you'll correct me if I'm wrong, describes the scope of work that is expected to be done by whoever is hired to do so. What do you make of, IFMS department saying that they needed time to understand, even though they did sign this Inception report on the 6th of February, by the 10th of February, 4 days later, an amount of 5 million rand had been invoiced. What kind of work happens in 4 days that justifies 5 million rand being paid out?
Good evening, and thanks for the invite. Whatever way and whatever excuse is given for what takes place in 4 days, when people say they don't understand an Inception report, basically, corruption, the way it sits, touching on the point of also media, why media is not covering this. The way corruption sits, it depends who's involved in it. When you have an American company, American accounting conglomerate, who's not new to fraudulent behavior, by the way, KPMG. They were selling pipes in the US in 1998. Sewage pipes for a astronomical amount of money. They got fined. They just pay the fine because they make so much money through that corruption. Here, you've got Treasury, who we had, this figure that if you removed him, the rand would collapse, and he was the best person in the country for a job, and he was the one who's under his watch. All this is taking place, but you won't hear that being spoken. You hear people on media, coming on the saying, the status of the country today, this rotten to the core and this. But when you bring that rot that's at the core and it affects the white monopoly capital, it's no longer a problem of the status of the, of the country. The status of our country is that you have corruptors who corrupt systems because they've got the financial ability to do so. You got people who are in positions who we do not know if they are there for the sake of the country or for those who control them externally to run the affairs of the country to suit themselves. And you've got corruptors, like, for example, on another case altogether with Anglos corrupting a municipality. No one will speak about that, but you'll hear everything that seems to be bad. That's at the end of the line, you'll hear that ANC is corrupt and anything that's run by black people is corrupt. But when KPMG is corrupt, they take, what kind of work did they do to get that much money for that much time? I'd like to know what kind of work that was, because we use accountants all the time in business and it never costs anywhere near that much. But when Treasury has done it, and this time it's the almighty Pravin Gordhan who's overseeing that behavior, it's not in the other media, you know. It's silent, it's numb, it does not matter. And this is the issue that we have with this situation.
Musiri, let's bring you in. I mean, in this case, in this internal report, whichever way you would like to look at it, there's no way you can even give this report the benefit of the doubt and how Treasury just got entangled in this web.
Tragedy at its best. One would say, cry thou country. And above all, factional news reporting. That is what is happening. You have a faction that report a specific individuals to be corrupt. The other ones are holier than thou. Holier than thou. It makes one want to cry that what we see as supposed to be justice news reporting is not what is happening in. I think it's key and important. You can't ignore the corrupt activity in them. For 16 hours equals to 15 million. Never heard of such a claim ever against any department. 16 hours equivalent to 16 million. That's unheard of. You have an unlimited work that is provided to KPMG. No way is there written that says a service level agreement between the department together with that KPMG. It is in itself the almighty auditing company, bigger than the department. They've captured that department. Now, as I'm saying that when you have within our midst priests who cry and say, but why is there no justice? Why would one sector be an interesting and be painted black when everybody else is supposed to be? When you investigate and you make an allegation of corruption, it should be across all board. It cannot be that you say this one is less corrupt, he is less of a man because we see him not to be a better off. But you ought to treat everyone equal. That's what we fought for, equal right in South Africa. We said that everyone is equal before the law. Everyone, we said that there should be freedom of expression, freedom of media. But this is no more that case. In actual fact, what you have now is that you have people who have gunned for others. They've separated issues. That is what we have here. And what we have, you've got a group of those that want to protect what they've been enjoying all along. We heard what President said. He says, I hate, in a reiteration of what happened today, he says, there's no hate for others. In actual fact, South Africa is the most free media house or a free media country could have. But why are media abusing that freedom? This is an abuse of freedom. Media is now targeting a specific individual. The other ones, no matter. This is not just an allegation, remember. This is a finding by an internal audit company within. In actual fact, it's not even an audit company, an internal audit committee within that very same department. You ought to be looking at this. These are clear facts. They don't need anybody to exaggerate on them. You don't have to write, imagine anything. It's even more factual than fiction. But what do? You concentrate on fiction. And facts doesn't matter anymore.
Right, and we'll come back to some of these points in just a moment. There seems to be a pattern to irregular payments in KPMG contracts. Once again, we go to Abigail for yet more signs of oversight. Abigail?
Well, thank you very much. Let's take a further look at KPMG paid 6.6 million rand for unsigned invoices, not signed off or approved by the relevant official. Also, management signed invoice can be obtained from Treasury's SCM. But taking a look at the auditor's indictment, invoice was not signed off by the relevant budget manager prior to that payment being made. That's what we know for now. It's back to the main studio.
Well, Mzwanele, let me latch on that figure of 6.6 million. If I'm not mistaken, I'm asking you because you might have insight having worked in government. Shouldn't that figure be noted by the DG if it's over a certain amount? And if it's over 10 million, if I'm not mistaken, then the minister needs to sign off on it.
No. Ministers don't get involved in transactions, should not get involved, let's say. They should not, but whether they get involved or not is another matter. But PFMA just keeps everything to the DG. The DG can sign anything up to $1 billion, all by himself, by the way. So that's really what it is. But I think the important thing here is just to show that this is not just a breakdown of government, it's a well-orchestrated siphoning of funds from the state. And by the way, I think it is important for South Africa to be aware that this is just a tip of the iceberg in National Treasury. There are certain things that happen when certain individuals are involved. For instance, this same modus operandi, we've seen it happening even at SARS, where there's a company there called BB&D that was operating at SARS. In fact, as the Decolonization Foundation have reported this to the public protector, the same modus operandi when Pravin was a commissioner at SARS and when Trevor Manuel was a finance minister, billions got out of SARS in that modus operandi. This same company, we must do another investigation again to look at what happened at Cocta, because this BIDS company was again contracted to do some work at Cocta. So let's just see, because we know that at some point Pravin was also at Cocta. I'm not saying anything now, but I think there's enough to say, let's see what happened, whether even processes were followed there. But the bigger point here is that where, you see, you spoke about the less coverage. This is not less coverage, this is a total blackout, because media is operating with this white monopoly capital. This is what Peter Blanche said in apartheid days, that there's a symbiotic relationship between the apartheid state and government. Here, we see a symbiotic relationship between white monopoly capital and National Treasury. Where do you have a situation where a private sector companies award the minister a best businessman? Now we know why he's a best businessman if you see what has happened under his watch. Where are these 81 CEOs that are forever talking about governance, what are forever trying to play Mr. Clean, talking against corruption, when such blatant corruption has happened? I think we should also be asking the Auditor General to say he must commit, we must put a formal question to the Auditor General to ask whether the head of internal audit, did he give him, did he get this report from the internal audit? Because it's very strange that with such a magnitude of corruption that these people just keep getting clean audits. We must look at the individuals concerned from Auditor General. To what extent are those individuals also maybe complicit in this? I think this is very big. This is a scandal of mega proportions. South Africa should be, instead of wasting time on fake emails, we should be dealing with this matter much more decisively.
I suppose the rot is, it could be deeper than the perception that we have. And let me play devil's advocate for a second here. Yamkelo, do you think perhaps, given the magnitude of the amounts of money that we're talking about, could this be an accounting problem, or are we specifically looking at a problematic, systematic governance system that has serious flaws?
Well, I wouldn't call it an accounting problem. To go back to KPMG itself and back to Pravin's tenure as the commissioner of SARS, they were implicated when they were the auditors to BAT, and BAT, British American Tobacco, had internal SARS information on its competitors. So they were getting internal SARS information on their competitors. There was a big scandal on the whole using of SARS to probe, or for certain companies to probe out their competitors with accessed information. I remember BAT was competing with Philip Morris International then, that was trying to break into the market, and they could get access to the filings of PMI International. And these scandals that are involving KPMG in government and in the private sector are very, very damning, because it's not the first time, it's not the second time, it's not the third time that KPMG is making headlines for the wrong reasons. And we cannot say that people who are audit professionals and having the Treasury, which is the most sensitive when it comes to public finance, has to have the best of the best in terms of auditing terms. Money as much as 10 Rand cannot leak out unaccounted for from the Treasury, because it gives out a lack of confidence in our systems in itself. And in a country where we struggle with money in excess of 40 billion Rand disappearing to corruption annually, such figures as 42 million, as 5 million, as 16 million.
It's just way too much.
It's just way too
and
much.
This is exactly what's been happening. And just for the reference of our viewers and to do away with any kind of apprehension that is related to this expose, ANN7 has uploaded all the related documents on its website. You can visit our website, that's www.ann7.com, and see for yourselves how the Treasury looked the other way when the millions of rands of taxpayers' money was literally squandered away. We ask, why did Treasury turn a blind eye to it and chose not to apprise the nation of this misappropriation? Once again, visit our website, www.ann7.com, and see it for yourselves.
Reverend, let me bring you here as the man of the cloth. You know, this affects poor people because it's money coming out of Treasury that could have gone to services. Who should account?
Well, an interesting fact from this exposure mainly is that neither Mr. Nene nor Mr. Godan have found it necessary to discuss this matter to Parliament, disclose it to Parliament, or to the President of the country. An important question is here, who and what is being protected? So these are the holier than thou so-called leaders, clean and anti-corruption advocates. But the point is today, all along with the bank collusion and all these corrupt activities that has been, denying the poor to be advancing the better life as it is about the struggle. These guys, the concern is, what was their conscience saying to them? Was this a call of the President Zuma to step down another mechanism of trying to cover up this debts? Because it's very funny today that we see or have this type of an exposure. Very, very dirty act, diabolic, really, while people are so much, suffering in this country, while people are so much overtaxed by banks and, without any mercy and not having any access to finances for developing themselves. And we find people trying to become clean and talk so much sound high about a president who is all about the uniting the country. And he be criticized for just one thing, because they were very clear aware that this is coming. And then the only mechanism they should do was just the propaganda which was used by the apartheid time of always talking about communists and communism, while they knew the people were fighting for their rights and for the total unitary state of South Africa. So my point lastly is that what is funny, no one has, there's never been a charged, none of them now have, there's such a very delay and as if, this is not that important. You get what I mean? Where is now the SACC? Where are they? In this type, where are they?
Let's come back to that question and we'll get maybe some suggestions from our panel on how we proceed with this internal report and what actions should be taken. There are no clear service level agreements with KPMG in IFMS PMO deal, and this fact has been abused to hilt to KPMG's advantage. Abigail tells us more.
Thank you very much. Let's take a further look at the 46.3 million rand paid without deliverables or quality assurance taking place, also marked as catastrophic in that report. 78.56% of total contract worth 59 million rand was paid in the first 9 months of that 5-year contract. Taking a look, management said most of the deliverables had been signed off, but taking a look at the auditor's comments, the work to be done and the approved deliverables by KPMG were not provided during that audit. The management still saying most of the deliverables had been signed off already. The auditor said management should ensure expenditure is in line with percentage of those deliverables. The auditor further stating to prevent exhausting the contract's budget without meeting those requirements. This is with regards to that 46.3 million rand paid without deliverables or quality assurance taking place. This is what we know so far. It's back to the main studio for now.
A lot of overspending was cited by the Auditor General. We have this department that was tasked in trying to make sure that there's a coherent system in the departments that are designed to make government departments more efficient, and yet we have this overspending that was obviously inevitable. Was there an issue, do you think, perhaps with the proper project timelines? If you look at some of the timelines that we have, the amount of money that was paid up in a very short amount of time, what kind of catastrophic consequences could this pose? I don't know who wants to take that, but perhaps, yes, you can take that.
Well, in short, it's called looting was taking place.
And there I was using so many words.
It's called looting.
When I could have been saying that.
You see, there was all this talk about, hey, ministers having blue lights, too many cars, the president's traveling too many cars, we should cut costs. But you can give KPMG that much money for that much hours of work. I mean, that's ridiculous. So if it's about cost cutting, and you're talking about cost cutting in relation, the Treasury will say that there's not enough money for building houses or there's not enough money for this. But KPMG, as a single white monopoly company, can make the amount of money that's been discovered so far in such a short space of time at Treasury, okay? And then must they run politics through the courts is not running to the courts about this one, right? And we are wondering, because if President Zuma dropped a cigarette on the street, he'd run to court and sue him for littering. But this issue is not serious enough for him to take to court, all right? And you see, they say that President Zuma has to account why he removed Mr. Pravin Gordhan. So we are not in the presidency. We cannot say why he removed him, right? He's got his reasons. But if this is one of the reasons, is it not justified? If somebody is looting together with a pal of his, that same company that my colleague here just mentioned that as being implicated in various departments doing this similar kind of things, is that not reason enough to remove somebody? Not only is it incompetent for that to happen under your watch as a Minister of Finance, it's outrageous, and it's depriving of the community of South Africa to advance, to get any further, okay? Because 1 minute you are saying that you need to cut costs on something, but you are spending money with your buddies on the other side.
Do as I say and not as I do.
Exactly.
That's the key issue there, that 78% of the budget given to KPMG, or the budget of a period of 5 years, was spent in the first 9 months, 46 million. Treasury was setting themselves up to pay more there.
No, in fact, I think the issue here is fraud. If you have auditors that say that for this amount of money to have been paid, this amount of work should have been covered. Now, if you have a situation where internal audit is saying nothing wrong with paying however many millions, as long as that is in line with the project plan and so on. Even better if you are ahead of the project plan. But in this case, people that are behind the project plan, but in terms of getting paid, the payments are way ahead, yet the project plan is far behind. That is fraud. It means that money has been paid for work not even being done.
Remember, there's no timesheets as well to be able to count if workers have been coming on time and doing what they're supposed to do. All this accountability that's not happening. I just want to hear from you, Masida. After these revelations, do you think the current finance minister can afford to ignore this, or really should a probe be launched in a very decisive manner?
Well, you can't ignore this elephant, the biggest elephant in the room of South Africa. There's no way you can ignore it. And even if you try to say that in a diplomatic way, in saving the image of one of the highest offices, particularly in South Africa, the one that is there within, governed even within the Constitution, and say, Treasury, let's protect it, let's protect the economy in that sense. But in a way, even if you protect the image, the due diligence must happen. There's no way in which you can avoid and put it aside too. There is this scandal that has come out. You can't, as a minister, and say, no, listen, I take into confidence that my predecessors were okay, they were doing an excellent work. Yes, for us, you can tell us that. It's okay. For public image, it should be. But later on, no maganjan. An investigation must go in there. There must be a way in which you must disprove these other facts which are there. Now, for us as civil society, for us as South Africans, we must make that call. We're expecting that that all other societies, so-called the people who love South Africa, save South Africa, there must be that song that must be sang and say that there must be an investigation, and the minister must make sure that these allegations, these facts that are there must be investigated. You can't ignore it and you can't run away from it. So we are pushing that the minister has to insist that there be an investigation. In actual fact, LSIU must be in there.
And the public protector, perhaps?
No, I think it's important. I understand the minister's posture differently. I understand the minister to be saying that he's got confidence in the national treasury systems. Tick. I understand the minister to be saying the position of a DG, the position of my former colleague, it's incumbent upon those positions to do the right thing. Tick. I think this is what the minister is saying. But as to the conduct of individuals, as to the misdemeanor of the individuals, as to the rogueness of the individuals concerned, the minister can't vouch for that. That's a different case. This is a case that we're dealing with now. And my understanding is that there are two things here. I said this yesterday, two things here. There is a general case about general investigation into the financial services, which includes National Treasury, which includes SAP, which includes FIG, and so on. That general part where MPs are there and making a case with the public protector, the Minister of Finance is not part of that. And for a good reason. If he was part of that, it would mean he's not on top of his job. It would mean that he's saying, please investigate me, and so on. So it just would not make sense for him to be there. So South Africa should understand it in that context. However, in terms of this context, I think the minister is actually looking into this matter. I saw some report that is looking actually into this matter. He can't not look into this matter. If it doesn't, then it becomes complicit. I think it is very important that we work with the minister, and even the rating agencies must understand that it cannot be that the minister can push this under the carpet just in order to give some kind of a clean image. Clean image should mean that when there is a rogue individual, I deal with that individual. And I think this is how we should approach it. The individuals concerned were not representing the government mandate. They were representing their own nefarious interests. So once they do that, they no longer enjoy the protection of government. And government cannot collaborate with individuals that are driving nefarious agendas.
Right.
Okay, we'll continue with our discussion. Yamkelo, I'll come back to you, but let's just check that the audit report into IFMS PMO contracts was scathing in its observations regarding the flaws in the KPMG contract. Abigail fills us again on the damning observations.
Thank you very much. Let's take a look at some of the irregularities. The no probity in KPMG contracts. The auditor points out glaring irregularities in this regard. No approved statement of work, no instruction to perform work, no performance penalty clause, and also no costing model. Taking a further look at more irregularities. No monitoring as per defined performance criteria. KPMG provided legal services to the IFMS, although another company was in fact hired to do that job. But continuing and taking a look at the lack of accountability in this regard, no compliance to supply chain process, unauthorized expenditure, irregular expenditure as well, and continuing potential fruitless and wasteful expenditure, ineffective project and contract management, and no legal recourse as well. That's what we know for now. It's back to the main studio.
Thank you, Abigail Fisari. filling us in there with more details. Yamkelo, I think over the last few weeks, there's been a consensus around the country. The president has mentioned that he's got no objection to a judicial commission of inquiry into a wider investigation into state capture. How do we proceed from here now? What should happen? Obviously, the president has to get the ball rolling on that one.
Well, as I said earlier, if we're going to investigate state capture, it cannot be in the narrow sense of that we are looking at Eskom and Tegeta contracts, because even there, when we are talking about Eskom, when we're investigating state capture into Eskom, we need to look at the fact that we have companies that have been with Eskom before 1994, that have been in long-term 40, 50-year contracts with Eskom, some of them charging exorbitant rates for coal itself, because at one time there was a contract that it's Glencoe of BHP at Arnold's Conciliary that was charging 1,015 rand per ton of coal, where the nominal price of coal was ranging at around 600 rand per ton, from a contract that started from 1975 and ended in 2015. So in those 40 years, they were still pricing according to how the initial contract was run. It was never reviewed. And when you talk about a judicial commission going, it must expose even this thing, because as a country, we must remember that first and foremost, democracy is about accountability, and accountability to its own citizens. Now, if the Treasury and any other department is going to try and keep a facade of cleanness when it knows that there is rot, they're violating the first and foremost fundamental principle of democracy. That is to account to the citizens what is happening with their money, because this money comes from ordinary citizens through their taxes. They are financing government to run, and as it may, as the shareholders of the country, because that's what citizens are. They are the shareholders of the country, the people who are in their employers, public servants, to run and manage their interests as citizens, are supposed to then come back and account to them. If there's a flaw and if there are rogue individuals within that, it's the duty, the constitutional obligation of the government to then be able to say, okay, we have a problem here. We are coming clean with these individuals that have mismanaged or embezzled or whatever misdemeanor that has happened, be it in Treasury, be it in parastatals, and whatever it may be, to say these individuals have mismanaged your finances, and this is what the Constitution say with regards to mismanaging those finances, and we are apprehending these individuals and giving them the due punishment that is necessitated by their actions and the legislation that exists to mitigate such actions. And therefore, when the president sets a judicial commission or whatever commission, because then again, it's problematic to instruct the president as to what kind of commission he needs to set, because the prerogative the Constitution bestows upon him is that he can set whatever commission he chooses. It can be a ministerial commission of inquiry. It doesn't necessarily have to be judicial. It can be a blended, it can be judicial and ministerial, and in whatever other commission of inquiry he can set up as a president himself to then decide to determine the wider state capture problem that we have, because this has been making headlines in the country and it's on everyone's lips, but we haven't gone into the nitty-gritty of how capture is in the state, and first of all, defining what state capture is and the extent of what state capture has gone and eroded the democracy that we've had for the last 22 years, because it's not something new, really.
I said this before and I'll say it again. I think we really are in the wrong business. KPMG, I don't know, I'm still in really shocked. There's no invoice, there's no timesheet, there is absolutely nothing. And yet there's this huge amount of money that was paid up to KPMG.
Given the word looting.
So,
looting, yes.
Now, this brings us to a very clear understanding that this whole noise, there's much behind this foreigners, this whole noise about the corrupt administration presently. The fact, it's very clear that now we are dealing with a cartel here, a cartel which is influenced and infected by apartheid agents. Because you must understand, when the new dispensation comes, no one was screened. There was that excitement because, you know, black people are very good, you know, forgiving and good loving. But now, we are now faced with that problem that was not attended to, that kindness, you know, compromising the fighters and those who have died for this democracy. We are now seeing this exposure of a cartel, a mafia group, you know, the gravy train products that are now showing that their mission is not for the people. You know, they are surviving out of the plight of the poor. But their mission is to loot, is to steal. Up to now, my money hasn't called for any judiciary, you know, any case. He hasn't run to court. See, the fact is, whom are they saving? Who is behind this whole thing of regime change? What is the real reason? Because the president is very clear of development and economical, social, what you call social radical transformation, about land back to the people, about the amendment of the constitution. Here is a lot of money being showered all over by people who say they don't like corruption. I'm disappointed also about the Nelson Mandela Foundation to have joined this cheap politicking chorus of the president to step down. Because now it is exposed that this calling of the president to step down, it is to hide and sweep under the carpet all this mess and of stealing figures that are very clean when they come to the public, going to turn the whole Ahmed Kathrada's funeral into a joke while they knew this was what they are after.
And Reverend, I'll ask you to hold on to that. We'll come back to that very point. Earlier we showed you how Mohammed Amin Qasim, the director of BITS, was said to be close to senior Treasury officials. In case you're wondering how did KPMG end up with such lucrative contracts, we may have a hint for you. Over to you, Abigail.
Thank you very much. Let's take a look at the issue of conflict of interest, the unmissable conflict of interest. Lendi Budewig is the Chief Director, Technical Support Services at the National Treasury. 7 sources say Lendi was previously employed with KPMG in a very senior position. Lendi Budewig's close kin, Mr. Daniel Budewig, is a director at KPMG. ANN7 does not know if Treasury is aware or unaware or has ignored this conflict of interest. This is what we know so far. It's back to the main studio.
Well, thank you very much, Abigail, for those details. How should government departments manage this conflict of interest that we just saw Abigail present to us? I don't know who wants to take that, perhaps. Yes, full share.
Well, conflict of interest only comes out when and becomes a big problem when certain people are implicated. But when others are implicated, it's swept under the carpet. Yes, we have this issue of state of capture, a report that came from a compromised public protector, who, I say compromised because leaks documents illegally, in a rush, an incomplete finding, an incomplete report, right, to the opposition specifically, okay? So that, the reason why this whole wooba-looba is taking place is because of that report, of that compromised public protector, okay? That compromised public protector, when she took out that, when she took the report and it went to court, and the Constitutional Court judge, who, mind you, when he came in, he himself was not liked by the opposition when he was appointed. But when his decision was taken based on that very report, that the president has somehow betrayed the Constitution, okay? So that's why all of this is happening right now. So I think, okay, I'm all for it. Let's do that state of capture report, but we must go back to when the state was actually captured. We did Truth and Reconciliation, didn't we?
Right.
And that was about the violence against black people, against our people, which to me, I did not think it covered nearly enough of what took place. Now, let's do the financial, we'll call it the state of capture report, and let's do that from all the way when our land was taken at gunpoint with bloodshed of our people, all right? And let's see who really captured the state. Because you've got this narrative today of a family that's, you know, has been in the country for such a short time, but people who own the land, for ISCO, a state-owned entity that Treasury, again, took out money and gave a lot of money to form today's privately owned company, okay? So if you want to talk about state capture, Let's look at where the capture comes from. The looting that happened during apartheid. That when you listen to the white-owned medias, they will tell you, we know that was a bad government, so we don't bother with that. No, we must bother with it because it's a result of today's situation in the country.
Let's try to wrap it up because we're running out of time.
Yes.
We know now that obviously there hasn't been any criminal investigations, there hasn't been any look into this situation, but ethically we know that it's completely wrong that people could work for KPMG and then end up at Treasury or the other way around.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think there will be a probe by the minister. If not, I can give South Africans an assurance that as the Decolonization Foundation will make it a point that we report this to the minister and to make sure that the course of action happens. And if need be, we'll also report this matter to the public protector. This is going to happen in the next 24 hours. We will ascertain, want to give South Africa the assurance that as the Decolonization Foundation, we will make sure that this report does not go under the carpet. But I think as we conclude, I think it's important that we understand this confusion. Everybody is talking about, yes, state capture, and others are taking state of capture, which are all sound similar but not the same thing. Let's be clear that Thuli Madonsela's main brief was to do state capture. She didn't do state capture investigation. She did the Gupta president investigation, and she called it state of capture. So what she wants to complete with her findings is just the things that relate to the two groups, as it were. What South Africa wants is a state capture. State capture will imply that the whole business sector, the whole corporate environment that has captured the state in line with the resolutions of the ANC, NEC. This is what we're looking for. We want everybody that has captured the state, whether it's the Guptas, whether it's Oppenheimers, whether it's the Ruperts, everyone that has captured the state must come to the open. And also, let's not understand the state narrowly as just the executive. The state is also parliament. If you look at the manner in which these parliamentarians are acting, clearly there's capture even in parliament. Even if you look at the judiciary is not clean on this. If you look at Decolonization Foundation has actually reported Judge Vali in terms of how he's conducted himself and all that. So very clearly, judiciary is also not clean. So when we say state capture, let's understand state for what it is, that it is executive, it is parliament, and it is also...
We've got less than a minute. Let's give the Reverend final word.
Well, finally, I will say that we really need to be alert and, as South Africans, not forget where we come from. We see having people who are totally infiltrated here. Even some of the leaders, even in parliament. Money is now calling the shots here. People are trying to prepare themselves to secure their stomach for the future coming leadership. And we are saying from this Matleke for Bertha Kowako Foundation that there is no way that the opposition can play an oversight role, because in this country they are not having any interest of this country in heart, these opposition parties. Their role is to take over power.
Right,
so
and we'll have to leave it there. We've run out of time, Reverend. Thank you so much for that insight. And of course, to you at home for watching in 7 Prime, thank you for taking part. And to our guests, gentlemen, it's been a pleasure to have you on the show. And of course, from Edwin and myself, very quickly before we go, if you go to our website, we have uploaded all the related documents with regards to the mismanagement of finances within a department in the National Treasury. Our website is www.ann7.com. You can go out there and go to our website and see the full report for yourselves.